Hello, everyone. This is part two of the series that I'm doing comparing Ilayaraja and Rahman. It's called Ilayaraja versus Rahman. But as I said, the point of the series isn't really to give you a definitive answer as to who is the better one of the two. It's more to compare and contrast the differences in their styles and approaches. It's very interesting because there are also a lot of convergences between them, which I will come to after I've exhausted all the points of contrast. Um, so they are actually similar in some respects and yet so different. So one respect that you could say that they straight away that they're similar is that they're both daring and creative, versatile, and yet they go about, or I should say, the versatility manifests itself in very different ways. So that's going to be the subject of this video, at least. So I think somewhere their personalities also come into play here. And on that note, I want to say that you could say that the highest level, highest plane of composing, it could possibly be said to be that where the music appears to be an extension of their personality itself. You know, so when you think about, say, a good composer like, say, a Harris Jairaj or G.V. Prakash, or even Devi Sri Prasad, they come up with good songs, but uh, are you really able to pinpoint what part of their personality speaks to you through these songs? No, it's not very easy. I'd say that even applies to Kareem. Like he's given us great songs, but they're also kind of all over the place. So whereas when you talk about even going back in the day, R.D. Burman, and then you come to Ilayaraja or Rahman, and of course you had M.S. Vishwanathan also in Tamil before Ilayaraja and Rahman. He was their predecessor. So for all of them, you can say that somewhere the music also reflects their personality, that they're operating at the level where what they like and what they don't like, both in music and maybe even in life per se, it actually transmits itself through the music. So I said towards the end of the previous video that the reason that a lot of Rahman fans like his music is that they perceive it to be cool. So if Rahman is cool, then what is Ilayaraja? So here's the answer, in my opinion. Ilayaraja is badass. Now, what is badass? I think that term itself, the word itself, is kind of getting dated. In my time, I'd only have a few strands of gray hair, but already it seems that, the slang, the vocabulary has changed a lot from back when I was in my 20s. So, in my 20s, we used to say things like badass or kick ass. I think the rough translation of that in terms of today's lingo would be what they call thug life. So it's like basically Ilayaraja doesn't give a damn. And you can make that out from his personality. He's not afraid to be blunt. He's not afraid to be perceived as rude or arrogant. I'm going to actually repeat the next statement in Tamil, which he actually said, and then I'll translate it. He actually said that எனக்கு head weight இருக்கிறவன்னு சொல்றவனுக்கு எவ்வளோ head weight இருக்கணும். So he's saying, like, if you are saying that I am egoistic, how egoistic must you be? It's like literally like he's making you feel small for daring to criticize him, who is a legend, who has done so many songs, so many films that we have stopped counting. His attitude is like he's going to, punch his chest and say, yeah, I am the greatest, and what are you going to do about it? And Rahman is the total opposite. So, like, I remember when he picked up the award for Guru, he picked up the Filmfare Award for Guru. And in his speech, he actually said that, Pritham had done such wonderful work for Life in a Metro. And he was almost sounding like he felt bad that he still had to win the award over them. Can you imagine Ilayaraja ever saying something like that? At least about his contemporaries, his, how should I say, rivals. So there is that difference in their personality. It does manifest itself in a way through their music. So how is that? I'm going to use one song each of both composers to get the point across. I'll start with the Rahman one. Think about Kadal Sadugudu from Aleppaide. If you're thinking about the Hindi version, then it's A Udi Udi, of course, from the movie Satya. So it actually starts off with a pretty nice, pretty infectious bass riff. It's dance, that one. And then he builds up the song gradually from that bass riff, because when the vocal melody comes, it's identical to the bass riff, and then it develops. But then, especially, if you talk about the Tamil version, because in the Hindi version, I would say Adnan Sami's delivery is a little more kind of, how should I say, more aggro. And I would say aggro in the context of that song, not necessarily very aggro per se. But if you especially talk about SPB Charan's delivery on that song, when he starts off, "Alaye Citrale," it's very soft and mellifluous. It's very soothing. So it does convey the required energy, but it's very controlled energy. It's not exploding. He's, it's making sure that the timber remains soft. The energy has to come through within that soft timber. And then when that song that Kadal Sarguru repeats 4 times. Kadal Sarguru Kanne Todu, they sing that 4 times. And then there is a very gentle, kind of jazzy little piano piece, and then he moves on to the charanam or antara, as they call it in Hindi. So, and the beats again are very, very light. It's like a feather touch. So, uh, that's why I'm saying that Rahman is about being cool, and being restrained and controlled is a necessary part of being cool. So I'm using cool in a different sense here from the one that means to be elitist or snobbish. Not he's not trying to be cool. He just is. The sum of the fans, they may be trying to be cool, but Rahman is just that flows from his personality. He's always It's always a controlled explosion. Even if you would take a song like Chandralekha, Kunjam Nilav Triladav. So when you have the chorus Chandralekha, so that's the percussions again in the background. They are very controlled. It's not an explosion of sound. It's not an explosion of rhythm. In general, I would say you can do this across any number of Rahman songs. The beat pattern itself is what will captivate you. But the drums aren't actually being played very hard. They're not throwing caution to the winds. It's always controlled. Even the fastest songs, even the songs that he did for Prabhudeva, like, or even his brother, like the songs of Kadal, like Mukabala or Urvasi, or then you have, like I said, his brother danced on the song Hamma Hamma. So they are all, even there, the beats are very carefully controlled. Now, this was again maybe not so obvious at that time to us, when we were coming at it, back in the 90s, when we were coming at the music from a very Indian film music point of view. Our exposure was, certainly mine, was limited to Indian film music. The only little bit of Western music I'd heard was, say, stuff like the Beatles, and then, and again, I mean, like, Love Me Do, She Loves You Beatles, not Strawberry Fields Forever Beatles, if you know the difference, and, or, the songs on films like Jungle Book, Walt Disney films like Jungle Book or Beauty and the Beast. So from that point of view, this song felt like, oh, this is amazing. This is just so intense. But then over a period of time, when you actually listen to really intense music, if I could put it that way, like rock or even like jazz fusion, especially like in jazz fusion where you have first the duels and then they go into a unison section towards the end, and that really gets intense. You actually never hear that in Rahman's music. Maybe not never, never. Maybe you could pick out a few exceptions here and there, but overall, that is the pattern. The Rahman's songs always sound beautifully curated. They're always very, very soothing, sonorous. So like even when the element of melody itself is not so pronounced, the textural effect is still very soft. Okay, um, but uh, but as I said, all controlled. He's making sure that he doesn't blow his stop. And and why do I say again that that's an extension of his personality? Because um, so many of the people who have worked with him, whether they be the singers or sound engineers or even um, directors, doesn't matter who, so many people who have spent worked extensively with him, they can't recall a single time when they felt that he really like lost his cool on them. Like just like maybe if he would raise his voice a little, that would be the maximum. I believe that for one of the early films, I forget which one, on which back in the day, H. Sridhar was doing the sound engineering for Rahman, and accidentally he pressed a button that ended up deleting all the work that they'd done. And it seems even then Rahman didn't really come down like a ton of bricks on him. So now that's the perfect moment to switch to Ilayaraja. You know what would have happened if the sound engineer had ended up deleting like the entire background score or something by mistake. So that actually, that intensity, that passion, so we only focus on the anger or the ego part of it, but that actually is an extension of the sheer passion and intensity with which he approaches music. You can see it in his eyes, that same intensity. It's a, it's a burning intensity in his gaze, so and it never relents. So he's always on the ball. He's always switched on. It seems like he's always thinking about music, and that intensity somewhere comes through in his music. So in that intensity, he's like, I'm just going to do what I feel like doing, and I don't care if somebody doesn't like it. They can just stuff it for all I care. Again, this is not exactly conjecture, because he once made a comment during a masterclass that was organized at a film festival, where an audience member asked him about why he used a very symphonic sounding violin theme in a particular scene in Alaygalori with Lee, which is a film set in a rural backdrop. And he said, like, I just felt like doing it, man. That's all. It was like, does there even have to be any other reason? So it's the point is that he doesn't care if you think it's weird, and that is why I am going to select my Ilayaraja exhibit as the song Netru in the Neram from the film Tick Tick Tick. Now, Tick 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 by itself was a pretty unconventional film for its time, certainly, And the music in turn that he gave to that film is amongst his most conventional. I wouldn't say that it tops Yendra and Ramanandame, which is a song that he did for Kadal Meengal. And if you haven't, then please do check it out, if only to understand exactly how far out Ilayaraja can get. Trust me that there is no composer in Indian film music, at least not in Hindi, Tamil, and Telugu film music, uh, because I can't really speak about Bengali or Malayalam film music that much. But at least if I talk about these three subgenres, then at least among them, there isn't another composer who has attempted something like that. I mean, polyrhythms with Indo-Western fusion, and then that polyrhythm shifts to a pure 3 by 4 time signature at times. I mean, are you crazy? Like, who does these kind of things in film music song? Well, the answer is who else but Ilayaraja. So that song, Nature in the Neram is not quite as far out as Yendra Madhumi, but it's still a perfect exhibit because there is so much, I would say, badassery or thug lifeness, whatever you want to call it, oozing through that very song. Just the mood. If you just start out with the groove that he introduces very soon into the song, then there's a very nasty kind of bass, if which then goes into a proper like guitar riff workout. Where else in film music in 1981 would you hear a kind of a riff workout like the sort that you might hear in rock music or a kind of progressive funk music, not like very commercial kind of music. I'm talking about stuff like funkadelic or Earth, Wind and Fire. You might hear this kind of a workout in a song, like in songs of those kind of artists or bands. But Ilayaraja was doing that in a film song. And then after that he brings in his trademark violins, string sections, and goes into the uh, vocals. And again, when you come into the first interlude, uh, he starts off with a kind of I'm not sure whether it is chromatic. I haven't brought my keyboard over here, so I am not able to check out the chord progression to tell you for sure. But certainly the piano portion that you hear in the first interlude is kind of out there, not kind of, more than out there. And then you get into a guitar section that sounds a lot like something that you might hear again in progressive funk or Canterbury stuff. If you don't know what is Canterbury, maybe that's a cue to just check it out on Wikipedia. Just the fact that I am dropping those kind of influences, so and so this is all about what makes that song different. But the song itself overall is driven by a brilliant groove, and in general there's a ton of groove in Ilayaraja's music. I really don't know why so few people talk about it. People want to talk about his counterpoints and the way he harmonizes string sections, which and the rare ragas that he has touched on. And I agree that all of those things are brilliant. But again, if you're talking about ragas, you could point to the someone like MS Vishwanathan also approaching unusual ragas. You can say that in Raina Beach, even Adi Burman did a kind of a Grahabedam. It's not exactly a Grahabedam, but he shifts from one raga to another, which is very very different, like diametrically opposite. So those kind of things, counterpoint again. Okay, nobody has done so much counterpoint as Ilayaraja, but Salil Chaudhary was doing a little bit of counterpoint before him, and after his Raja's time, you can't say that counterpoint by itself is a very unique feature, but the sheer amount of groove and all guitar or bass based grooves, he's not trying to generate grooves using synthesizers or computers. No, these are real live, it's like flesh and blood groove, you know. Again, like groove that you would hear in the best funk music. That's the groove that he's putting in these film songs. And from the fact that a very there's just a very few like me who talk about it, I get the feeling that the point of him using all this groove was in any case lost on a lot of people. So why again, why else would he do it, except that he was so fond of it. So he loved groove so much that he decided to put it in these songs. And and that's why I'm saying that I can imagine that he, Raja writes this kind of wonderful grooves, and then when he listens to the song back on the on the playback, of course his main purpose at that time is to check if there are any corrections that need to be made. But I bet that there was a part of him that was also secretly dancing to the grooves that he himself wrote. So he wanted to really just have fun with his music, and that again is such a little talked about aspect of his music. But Ilayaraja is essentially like just having so much fun with his music, and it really comes out in his songs. People only talk about how he was such a strict taskmaster and how to make sure that he got exactly what he wanted out of the singers and the musicians. But the way that they delivered it, he always made sure that an immense sense of spontaneity of a live band performing the song, that came through. So it's a wonderful contrast, which again I will extend into part three. What will be the adjectives I will use for part three is something that you'll have to wait for part three to come up online to find out. In the meantime, do let me know your thoughts on this one. Whether you agree that Ilayaraja is badass and Rahman is cool, and whether you think I've touched on enough of the reasons to as to why they are what they are. Um, because I wouldn't use the word all, because there's just so much that they have done. But can you think of any other things, that any other qualities that explain how and why Ilayaraja is badass and how and why Rahman is cool? If so, please do post in the comments. And if you liked these videos and would like to watch more such videos comparing Ilayaraja and Rahman, please do subscribe and click the bell icon so that you're notified of future videos from me. So with that, have a great day. Bye. See you next time.